Hello, we're back to continue reading A Swim in a Pond in the Rain by George Saunders. This is a book with 7 short stories written by Russian authors, and we're currently reading In the Cart by Anton Chekhov from 1893 or 1897, I believe. Let's give that a double, triple check. But so far, we've read a few pages of this book, and we're continuing to read it. It's from 1897, In the Cart, Anton Chekhov. This is Philip Chen, and we are reading stories and books about storytelling. A Swim in a Pond came highly recommended by a few of the folks on Reddit. And that's why we're checking it out. And we're seeing that George has provided such great information, even in this first short story. We've taken the approach of reading just a page of the 11-page short story at a time. That's one of the approaches that really helps. And getting into the mind of the author and the reader. Why is the author presenting us information about characters? Why are they introducing descriptions? And all of those seem to answer questions of and then what comes next? One of the things George cites is when he had a book with, I think, the New Yorker, he was asking his editor, hey, what do you think about what I wrote? And the editor said, I kept reading every line. And so that basically means doesn't matter if a story's great or not great, what captures the essence is if I can't stop reading just another line. And so we're continuing the story with some of the characters that we know, like Myra, and right now we are just meeting a new character named Hanov, who has kind of come through out of nowhere. And so we're going to keep going and read through what happens next. Check out the previous videos that we've been reading to catch up on exactly what's been covered so far, but we're diving in right now. It was hard to find the chairman at the office, and when you did find him, he would say with tears in his eyes that he had no time. The inspector visited the school once in 3 years and had no understanding of anything connected with it. Since he had been formerly employed in the finance department and obtained the post of school inspector through pull, the school board met very rarely, and no one knew where the trustee was a half-liter peasant, the owner of a tannery, stupid, of course, coarse, and a bosom friend with the janitors. And heaven knows to whom she could turn with complaints and inquiries. He really is handsome, she thought, glancing at Hanov. Meanwhile, the road was growing worse and worse. They drove deep into the woods. Here there was no turning off the road. The ruts were deep, and water flowed and gurgled into them. Twigs struck them stingingly in the face. "How's the road?" said Hanov, and laughed. The schoolmistress looked at him and could not understand why this odd fellow lived here. What could his money, his interesting appearance, his refinement get him in this God-forsaken place with its mud, its boredom? Life granted him no privileges, and here, like Semyon, he was jogging slowly around an abominable road and suffering the same discomforts. Why live here when one had a chance to live in Petersburg or abroad? It seems as though it would be a simple matter for a rich man like him to turn this bad road into a good one, so as to avoid having to endure this misery and seeing the despair written on the faces of his coachman and Semyon. But he merely laughed, Hanov, and it was all the same to him, and he asked nothing better of life. He was kind, gentle, naive. He had no grasp of this coarse life, spelled C-A-C-O-A-R-S-E. He did not know it, any more than he had known the prayers at the examination. He presented nothing to the schools but globes, and sincerely regarded himself as a useful person and a prominent worker in the field of popular education. And who had need of his globes here? This is George now, speaking a little bit about his thoughts. Myra continues to think of the school and its corrupt administration and the fact that there's no one for her to turn to, and then thinks, with no transition, self-interrupting, he really is handsome. So even though she's dismissed Hanov, she's been watching him, his broad, wealthy back swaying there just ahead in that expensive fur coat. And we might say, pretending to think about the school when really thinking of him, or rather, trying not to think of him. That self-interruption is a beautiful thing. It says, the mind can be two places at once. Many trains are running simultaneously in there, consciousness aware of only one at a time. Note the little burst of pleasure we feel as we recognize ourselves in Myra. Ever had a light, persistent, unrequited, indefensible semi-crush? He's not for her. She knows it. She never seriously considered him anyway, and yet her mind keeps being lured back to him like a dog to the alley behind a good-smelling restaurant. Notice how impatient your mind reading is, or we might say how alert it is. It knows where we are. Myra, lonely and unhappy, has encountered a potential antidote in Hanov. Like an obsessed detective, the reading mind interprets every new arriving bit of text purely in this context, not interested in much else. And yet, here, in the third paragraph, it seems that whatever we want, whether we want one or not, we're going to get a description of the road. Why does a story even need these types of descriptions? Why did Chekhov decide to pull us out of the central action and describe the world outside the cart? One of the tacit promises of a short story, because it is so short, is that there's no waste in it. Everything in it is there for a reason, for the story to make use of, even a brief description of a road. So, as we enter this description, we're asking, everywhere in the back of our reading mind, how in goddamn Narnia is this description of a road going to turn out to be essential? For example, not wasteful. Earlier we asked if there might exist certain laws in fiction. Are there things that our reading mind just responds to? Physical descriptions seem to be one such thing. Who knows why? We like hearing our world described, and we like hearing it described specifically. Two men in green sweaters were playing catch besides a wrecked car is much better than, I drove through this area that was sort of bland and didn't notice much. A specific description, like a prop in a play, helps us believe more fully in that which is entirely invented. It's sort of a cheap, or at least easy, authorial trick. If I'm trying to put you in a certain invented house, I might evoke a large white cat stretching itself out to what seemed like twice its normal length on a couch in that house. If you see the cat, the house becomes real. But there's only part of the move. That's only part of the move. That cat, having been placed in that particular story, is now also a metaphorical cat in relation to all of the other dozens, hundreds, of metaphorical elements floating around in the story. And that cat now has to do some story-specific work, or we might say it's going to be doing some story-specific work, whether it chooses to or not, by its very presence in the story. The question is, what work it's going to be asked to do and how well it will do it. Here, the road's growing worse, a particular authorial choice. It would be a different story, if the road were getting wider and drier and open to a meadow awash with new flowers? What does it, quote unquote, mean that the road is growing worse? Why did Chekhov choose to make the road worse? That's a good question. One that might be best answered by you, dear reader, via this method. Hold the two models up in your mind, road growing worse versus road growing better, and feel the ways in which worsening road is better, or feel the way that the two choices are different. We can try to articulate the reasons why a worsening road is a better choice than an improving road, or vice versa. But for now, let's just note that Chekhov did two things in this paragraph. He remembered where he put us, in a cart passing through some woods in early spring, then described conditions there with specificity. The ruts were deep, and water flowed and gurgled in them. So this is both a realistic description, it's spring, snow melts, road gets muddy, and a little poem that adjusts our understanding of the story. Roughly speaking, we understand this description to indicate a steadily degrading situation. The road is growing worse and worse. They are driving into the woods. There's no turning off. There's a cost to this trip. Those twigs in the face. This falls on us differently, with more foreboding, say, than a description in which they drove out of the woods and into the bright sunshine to find that the road widened welcomingly, and low-hanging flowers brushed against her cheeks softly as the cart gently rolled past a joyful, pleasant Reading. Both the descriptions would fulfill a sort of preparatory function. We would feel Chekhov using the description to set us up for whatever is to come. What's strange is this. Had Chekhov decided to send them past that joyful peasant wedding, this would have changed the rest of the story, or the rest of the story would have had to change to take that more positive description into account and render it cogent to the larger evolving entity. A story is an organic whole, and when we say a story is good, we're saying that it responds alertly to itself. I'm going to read that line once more again. I highlighted it in purple. A story is an organic whole, and when we say a story is good, we're saying that it responds alertly to itself. This holds true in both directions. A brief description of a road tells us how to read the present moment, but also all the past moments in the story and all those to come. Henov has money. He could live anywhere, but here he is, right where Myra is, on a muddy provincial road, one that he, at least, could repair, only it never occurred to him to do so. But he merely laughed, and apparently it was all the same to him, and he asked nothing better of life. Why is he so passive? If she had power, she'd do something with it. She completes this turn against him at the end of the page, remembering the stupid globes he gives to the school, a gift that allows him to think of himself incorrectly as an enlightened, useful person. So, let's ask our 3 questions again, and I'll give you my approximate answers. 1. Look away from the page and summarize for me what you know so far. We know a lonely woman is driving on a dirt road back to her home and school. A lonely woman is in the presence of someone who, we expect, may become a friend or lover or in some way relieve her loneliness. 2. What are you curious about? They seem to have known each other a long time with no sparks. So what might bring them together today if they've never been brought together before? Also, do I even want them together? I sort of do, I guess. And the story seems to be dangling that possibility in front of me. But by the end of the page, Myra seems to be leaning away from him. 3 of what do we know so far? The questions. 3, where do you think the story's headed? I don't know. I know what the issue is, but don't see how it's going to be resolved. This uncertainty is producing a not unpleasant tension. I feel that something has to happen that will present an opportunity for Hannah to provide comfort to Myra, to assuage her loneliness. Maybe they will just become friends or share some small moment of closeness that has the effect of slightly revealing Myra's unhappiness. Here, an announcement to avert the possibilities of you abandoning my book this early in the game due to annoyance. We'll now start reading 2 pages at a time. So there you have it. That's our reading for today. We're continuing to read In the Cart by Anton Chekhov. Thanks you to George Saunders, the author of this book, A Swim in a Pond in the Rain. And I'll see you folks tomorrow. Yo soy Felipe y seamos mágicos. Ciao.